Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast today. Let's see, I've been having some crazy tech issues on my end, and so I'm not quite sure everything is quite working out the way we want. I should be unmuted, we should be broadcasting, but let me double check the streams. Don't cross the streams, right? So we were able to start broadcasting just fine on YouTube, but I was having trouble connecting with Facebook. So I ended up having to restart all the software and apologize to those of you who may have been joining live from YouTube because you probably sat trying to figure out what the heck was going on for a while. Let me get everything in place here and we'll jump in and get started. So welcome to Sidereal Insights, the Astro update for April 20th, 2020. I'm Phaedra. I'm the artist and astrologer of Mystick, Physick, Astrology. And I use Western Sidereal Astrology in my practice to help you kind of reconnect with your soul purpose and remember why you came into this world to begin with. And welcome to the broadcast. I'm really excited to have you with. Let me get all my windows kind of sorted out here. I'm trying the pop-out chat for YouTube today. Hi, Danielle. I see you're with us. You can hear me and see me. Okay, awesome. And I think I fixed the issue with the audio, with the sound. It was all distorted the last couple times I did the broadcast, Danielle, and I think I figured it out. It was related to the bit rate, so we just adjusted bit rate, and hopefully the audio is not distorted either on YouTube or on Facebook. Welcome. It's good to have everyone here. Sorry we're getting a late start. Okay, so I have my notes. I can't quite see my Facebook chat with the way I have my screen set up right here. So let me just shift things a little bit, and that way if you have comments, Danielle, I won't miss them. And then, okay, it looks like I have my YouTube chat going as well. Let's see, I'll keep an eye on that. And then my notes. And the only thing is I can't actually see the broadcast while I'm doing this, so it's a little bit weird. So I'm just going to trust that things are going smoothly. So thank you for bearing with me while we make this shift in processes to how I normally do the broadcasting instead of live streaming through my phone directly to Facebook. It's a little bit different. I'm doing all my live streaming from my laptop now using software and doing multicasting. And so it's kind of interesting. So if you need to look up for this broadcast, we're using the Fagan Bradley Sidereal Zodiac. So if you need to look up your sign placements for that purpose, you're going to want to go to mystickphysick.com/sidereal tools. The link is in the video description, depending on which place you're watching from. It's either going to be right above or right below. And so my aim with this broadcast is really to provide guidance for you on how you can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to really kind of affect your life in a positive way. And we've got a lot to talk about today. I want to thank you for watching. I want to invite you to like and share the broadcast, tag a friend if you know someone who might be interested in what we're going to be talking about today. Today, as a matter of fact, we're going to be talking about Venus retrograde and Venus out of bounds. We're going to be talking about the new moon in Aries, and we're going to be talking about some upcoming transit activity going on between now and the end of the month and early May. But I want to invite you to please, yes, like us and follow us on Facebook. Feel free to subscribe to the Mystick Physick Astrology YouTube channel. You can always sign up for notifications, and that way you don't ever miss a broadcast. I did actually remember to email all of you yesterday to remind you that there would be a live broadcast today. I haven't been so good about that in the last couple of months, and I do apologize. But welcome. So we're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be talking about some things to think about as we move into late spring. As we move into spring, kind of late April, mid-May with retrograde activity. And I want you to kind of be thinking about what you're committing to for the year. We've been talking about this for the last couple of broadcasts. What are you committing to for the year? What responsibilities are you attending to? Those responsibilities are going to come up for some additional attention over the summer in some ways. It's going to give you an opportunity to go back and kind of review what you're doing and make sure that you're meeting your commitments the way that you want to be meeting your commitments. But let's first kind of recap some current transits, current retrograde activity, where we're at. So we're just kind of entering into this season of shifting and change and transition. And so I want to just kind of reassure everyone who's joining the broadcast, expect that things are going to be in flux for the next couple of months, partly due to retrograde activity, partly due to eclipse activity. We're coming into eclipse season. We're going to talk about that a little bit today on the broadcast. I don't see anyone in the chat. Let's look. There's Danielle. Okay. Just stopping to kind of check on how everything is going here with the chat boxes. Okay. So just to kind of recap where we're at. So we're late April. Pluto is stationing retrograde as we speak. So we're in the midst of that shift in pace with regard to Pluto-related activity, anything involving your house that has to do with Scorpio. You're going to want to take a look at that house in your chart. Things are going to be shifting in part because Pluto is about to make his about face for the mid-year retrograde, but also because we're about to embark on a new series of eclipses coming up over the coming 2 years that's going to involve Scorpio Taurus signs and Scorpio Taurus houses for all of us. And so the shift relates to both of those things kind of at once, because we're shifting into a new eclipse series, but also because we have Pluto stationed in retrograde. We have the sun right now in Sidereal Aries, just entered Aries on the 14th. He's going to be in Sidereal Aries until May 15th before the sun moves into Taurus. We have Mercury in Pisces for just a few more days. Mercury entered Pisces after a really prolonged time in Aquarius. He entered Pisces on April 7th and on the 25th. So here in just, yesterday. On the 25th, he entered Aries until May 9th. So just for, a little over 2 weeks or so. So with this shift, we have Mercury moving from a sign where he's really not well supported, right? He's in detriment in Pisces. Moving into Aries, that's a little bit different energy, right? That's a little bit of a refresh, kind of a kickstart. It's an opportunity to kind of re-energize some things with Mercury in Aries. This is really an energy, Mercury's transit of Aries is really an energy about speaking for yourself, but also speaking up for yourself, right? Because Mars is about boundaries and Mars rules Aries, right? So this is about being assertive in dialogue or communication, and you'll find that that may be easier to do while Mercury is transiting Aries until May 9th. So if you need to use your voice to establish or reaffirm your boundaries, use this time to do that. It's an excellent time to be having conversations around boundaries, around personal needs, maybe even personal space. So consider using Mercury's transit of Aries to do that. We have Saturn in Capricorn right now. We'll be talking about that for some time, because that's a longer term transit, right? That's going to take between 2.5, 3-ish years or so. Because Saturn just takes that long to tour a sign on average. He moved into Capricorn on the 31st of January, so right at the end of January. He's going to be there until late January 2023. And so this is a shift where folks who've had Sagittarius sun or rising, who really were tested and challenged and just driven by Saturn over the last 2.5, 3 years, are now kind of getting a bit of a break, a bit of a reprieve. But those of us with Capricorn sun, Capricorn rising, that's a little bit different story. Now it's our turn to be a little bit tested. Now, hopefully this will work a little bit in our favor, because Saturn, of course, rules Capricorn. He's at home there. And of course, just as that happened, we've got the Mars energy of this early transit through Capricorn kind of energizing that. Danielle says my ascendant is at 5 Aries. So yes, you're going to be feeling this, this particular new moon. And you're feeling this Mars energy especially too. And I kind of like this Mars energy that we have right now, Danielle. We're going to talk a little bit more about why as I get into talking about this new moon. But if you have Capricorn sun or rising, if you have Aquarius sun or rising, expect to be tested Even the rest of you, like you're going to be tested in the area of life occupied by Capricorn in your sidereal natal chart in the coming 3 years. Saturn is going to be looking for weaknesses to your foundations, weaknesses to underlying structures, and any place where there's weakness, he's going to highlight that and give you the opportunity to rebuild that structure, rebuild that foundation, redo it with no weakness, so that as you go forward, you are going forward from a stronger starting point. So with Mars also in sidereal Capricorn from March 23rd for a 6-week tour until May 6th, so we have a couple more weeks of this, that's an opportunity to be working very diligently towards your ambitions and your goals, and really taking advantage of an opportunity for future reward, right? This is about delayed gratification and the opportunity to just stick to your guns, show some ambition, some leadership, some initiative to take action towards what it is you want. Just kind of seize life and move forward with it and be rewarded if you do that and do that well. With Mars conjunct Pluto, as he made that sign change, this transit of Capricorn is due to be quite transformational. So that's an opportunity to really take advantage of it if you're willing to take action, be a leader, tap into your influential side. And Danielle is saying, great, my Saturn is at 8 Aries too. Saturn can work with you. It can be a challenge, though. I don't see any comments yet coming through on YouTube. However, the YouTube broadcast kind of started and just like sat on dead air for a while. So maybe people jumped off because of our technical issues, but that's okay. They can still catch the replay. So Jupiter just entered Capricorn, right, on April 6th. So that's a new-ish shift for us. Jupiter takes generally about a year, right, to transit every sign. And so that's a little bit different expression from what we're used to. Let me get this pop-up box out of my way. Because we've had Jupiter in Sagittarius for so long. We had Jupiter in Sagittarius while we had the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse series going on. And so I think in some ways that kind of offered like some measure of protection to folks who were really hit hard with Gemini Sagittarius, which is a beneficial thing considering Pluto and Capricorn were there at Pluto and Capricorn, Pluto and Saturn were there at the same time. And Pluto and Saturn can be very difficult energies to work with if you haven't spent the time kind of integrating them, right? Because Saturn is about obstacles, it's about limitations, about being frustrated and being held back from what it is that you want, and having to find ways to work with or around those obstacles and limitations. And Pluto, of course, is about transformation and metamorphosis, but it's about transformation and metamorphosis in such a way that whatever's being transformed has to be destroyed. It has to undergo this experience of destruction and rebirth. So it's not necessarily like clear cut, clean, easy transformation. It's messy, it's yucky, it's painful, right? So thankfully we had Jupiter in Sagittarius for that, because I would hate to think of what things may have been like for folks with heavy Gemini Sagittarius in their chart to be experiencing those two transits of Pluto and of Saturn and the conjunction there without Jupiter like running interference, so to speak, I guess you could call it, during that time frame, because that was really a challenging set of transits. Jupiter is going to be in Capricorn from April 6th until early April 2021. So Jupiter generally takes right around a year, right, to transit every sign. And so he's going to retrograde, though. His retrograde begins May 15th. And what that means is in late June or so, Jupiter is going to backtrack into Sagittarius until late November, which is well after he's stationed direct again. So we're going to have this period of time from Sagittarius until late November where we have Jupiter, Sagittarius, from late June until late November, where we have Jupiter in Sagittarius. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. It's probably because I got all thrown off trying to get the broadcast up and running today. But we're going to have this period of time from late June until late November where Jupiter is back in Sagittarius. So he's going to kind of be reactivating that situation or those themes that came up for us during this past year, right? From last April to this April. Just for a chance to get some resolution, to do any final do-overs or tweaking or whatever may need done, wrap up any kind of unfinished business that you might have in your Sagittarius house before he moves back into Capricorn for good, right? And so then he'll be in Capricorn from November of this year all the way through April, early April of 2021, which is nice for folks like me who have Saturn transiting the sun right now, which is not necessarily a fun transit, right? We all get that, but once a year, it's usually a lot of hard work or a lot of things that like drain your energy, make you tired. So we have Venus in Taurus right now until August 2nd, and this is an extraordinarily long transit. So this is where we're going to talk about Venus being retrograde and Venus being out of bounds. This is an extraordinarily long transit for Venus because she's normally in a sign for about 3.5 weeks or so. And it's because of the retrograde. Now, Venus rules Taurus, so in a way this is kind of a good thing, because if she has to spend such a long time in any sign, especially during retrograde, better be her own sign than a sign where maybe she's not as well supported, right? So Venus in Taurus until August 2nd. She rules Taurus, so she's strengthened there. Now, the retrograde, though, is not a good time for Venus-ruled activities. And keep in mind, she entered her retrograde shadow earlier this month, April 9th, she entered her retrograde shadow. She's not going to be retrograde yet until mid-May, so we still have until middle of next month before this kicks into gear. But her energy and her ability to influence is kind of weakening with the slowdown. It's going to be really intensified in the days around her planetary station. And then it's just going to be wonky during the retrograde, right? Because we all know that's how retrogrades work. The planetary energy just goes kind of wonky. Well, it's wonky because of the retrograde, but it's also going to be wonky because of this out of bounds transit as well. So here's what you kind of need to know, right? Because the retrograde is not such a good time for Venus-ruled activities. Bargain hunting for things like art, antiques, etc., valuables. This can be fruitful if and only if you've had a purchase on your mind for some time that you've been thinking about making and you've just been waiting for the perfect opportunity. If that opportunity comes up during Venus's retrograde, you could do it. You could take advantage of that because you may get a good deal. It could be fruitful to make that kind of a purchase during Venus retrograde. Because sometimes what happens is we're forced to let go of valuables at a loss due to circumstances that are beyond our control, or just because we don't realize the value of whatever it is we're selling or getting rid of or giving away or whatever, right? So if you're making a purchase like that, yes, you could cautiously proceed, but I would say only do it if it's a purchase that you've been planning on making anyway. Otherwise, it's not a good time to be buying art, buying jewelry, buying antiques or valuables, making investments, things like that of any kind. It's not a good time to start a business. Don't be doing cosmetic surgery, especially elective cosmetic surgery. Now, if you have to do something and you don't have a choice, do it, right? But if this is elective surgery and you can kick the can, don't be doing cosmetic surgery or making changes to your appearance during Venus retrograde. Stick with your same stylist, stick with your same styles until the retrograde is over, unless what you're doing is extremely temporary, right? The risk is that you won't be happy with the result if you proceed, especially if it's a permanent or semi-permanent type of thing. And that's why cosmetic surgery should be completely off the table while Venus is retrograde. This is a time during the retrograde when you could potentially reconnect with past lovers, right? But this is not a time for beginning a new love affair during Venus retrograde, because you could be seeing, if you're meeting new people or beginning new relationships during Venus retrograde, you might be seeing things through rose-colored glasses. You might not be seeing things as clearly as you need to be making decisions about long-term commitments. It may be that you're kind of romanticizing a person in some way, right? Or kind of projecting your own intentions and your own emotion onto a situation. You won't really get a clear picture of the person until after Venus returns to direct motion, so just don't be making any long-term commitments during this time. It's really not wise. If you're in a relationship and it already has issues, expect those unresolved issues to resurface during Venus retrograde if there's any issues that remain unresolved. And so you may need to, and it could be an ideal time to reassess whether your relationship is worth sustaining in the long run during the weeks of Venus retrograde. That can be a good way to kind of approach it. But Venus retrograde is really about reevaluating, reassessing. It's a time to be taking a look at your priorities. It's a time to be taking a look at your values and deciding what's really, really important. And if there are things that are just not important or that don't align with your values any longer, it's a time to be moving into a space of letting them go. Now, you don't have to let anything go exactly during Venus retrograde. Just prepare for doing that after she returns to direct motion, right? Now, with Venus out of bounds, this, of course, began on April 2nd, right before she entered her retrograde shadow. And it's going to last until June 1st. So not for her entire retrograde, but for the first 2 weeks of it. It will last until June 1st. But Venus out of bounds is a period of time where we might find more appreciation in unexpected beauty, unusual or eccentric relationships that kind of break the boundaries of social mores and what's acceptable or mainstream, let's say that. It can be Venus out of bounds can increase our appreciation for eccentric and unusual and avant-garde art or fashion or jewelry. Or even architecture, any kind of design that involves an aesthetic, right? Business direction can also take a turn for the unusual and the creative during Venus retrograde. This is a time when outside the box thinking can be really, really profitable. But there's a caveat there. With the retrograde coming up, you don't want to be starting a new business, even though Venus out of bounds might be the perfect energy for your business. What you want to be doing is wrapping up Venus ruled activities, so things related to beauty, money, business, love, partnership matters, in these final days of April and the early weeks of May, before the retrograde begins on May, I think it's May 13th that Venus retrogrades. So use the remainder of April and the early part of May to your advantage. But like I said, don't start a whole new business idea or a whole new business venture during the retrograde, because Venus rules business, she rules money, and you're going to want her full support as you begin your endeavor. If you have a new business idea in the works or a new business plan that you're about to launch, this is really more of a time for reevaluating things. Like we're saying, reevaluating your relationships, your priorities, your values, what's important, what isn't. Look for things that you need to let go of or clear out. Now, with the out of bounds transit of Venus and the retrograde, thinking outside the box, where you can leverage this if you're a business owner or entrepreneur, is if you need to get creative to react to a changing situation or a changing circumstance in your industry or in your field or in the environment around you, you can make an adjustment to your business approach that can be unusual or odd or eccentric outside of this, where we can get into that out of bounds, outside of the box kind of thinking that can bring you profitability. It's probably going to be short term, right? Because of the retrograde. It's only going to be for this period of time as you adjust to a certain set of circumstances, and then you'll be able to shift gears down the road as those circumstances change and move forward under a new trajectory, a new path. But this Venus retrograde period, there's something going on in the short term that you may have to adapt to. And so this is where that creative and out-of-the-box thinking can be employed to your benefit. This is how the combination of the retrograde and the out-of-bounds energy of Venus can work together. Okay, so kind of looking ahead, we have Pluto, of course, retrograde April 25th. And then we have a threefer in 1 week in May. We have Saturn retrograding on the 11th. We have Venus retrograding on the 13th of May, and then we have Jupiter stationing retrograde on the 14th, right? So all of this activity is going to kind of transition us into the mid-year slowdown. But it's a big shift because it's all happening within a particular period of days. So, of course, stationary planets are more powerful than when they're moving in their normal orbit, right? And we say this, it's not literal, it's figurative, right? Because the planets aren't actually moving backwards in a retrograde, right? It just looks like that from where we're at here on Earth. But this is a big shift because when a planet is stationary, it's even more powerful. Its energy is like concentrated on a particular point, and it can be quite unpredictable energy, and this will last for about 3 days, maybe longer. It depends on how fast of an orbit a planet has. So, you know, Mercury, Venus, Mars, you're going to be feeling this for the day before, the day of, the day after. The mid and outer planet retrogrades, that intensity of the station can last up to a week even, if not potentially longer. And so we have this very intense week with Saturn station, Venus station, Jupiter station, all one right after another. And it's a major, major shift. And so be prepared for it. Cut yourself some slack. Give yourself a break. I just want you to be aware. Keep your schedule kind of clear if you can. And that way, if things come up unexpectedly, or if things come up that you need to adapt or adjust to, you will have room in your mindset, room in your plans, and room in your schedule to be able to do that. So that's how I would encourage you to handle that week in mid-May. Now that's getting a little bit farther ahead because, of course, we're going to be talking about that again on our next broadcast. But I just kind of want you to think about that, and I want you to think about how you're going to use the slowdown coming up over the mid-year months with the 4 planets retrograde. New moon in Aries, April 22nd. So that's coming up just in a couple days. Tomorrow, of course, we're going to have our new moon in Sidereal Aries guided intention setting live broadcast in the Sidereal Insights Astrology community here on Facebook. So if you'd like to join live for that, please do. With this new moon, I just really kind of want to underscore upheaval is possible, right? This is a new moon in Aries, so Mars is the ruler. The sun is a couple of degrees wide of conjunct Uranus, who's also in Aries with this new moon. And we have Mars, of course, currently in Capricorn. And I think that, of course, is going to help in some ways. But upheaval, of course, is possible. And that's really kind of what I want to underscore. I want you to be prepared for the unpredictable, the unexpected, or the sudden. And this could be unexpected or sudden changes. It could be setbacks. It could be reversals. It could be disruptions. It could be accidents. It could be surprises of any kind. But with Mars currently transiting Capricorn, what we have with this new moon is the potential for heroism in crisis. And we also have the potential for surprising or unexpected courage with Mars transit of Capricorn. So Uranus can trigger crises. And so that's really kind of what I want to highlight. So we have Uranus kind of tangled up in this new moon, but we have Mars really strongly positioned to help us navigate through that in a really kind of upstanding type of way. That potential for heroism and crisis, unexpected courage. And it could be that it's courage that we didn't expect to find within ourselves, that we're able to tap into some unexpected well of it. Or it may be that we see courage around us in the world in unexpected ways, or demonstrated from people that we just didn't quite expect that level of courage from, right? But it's also an opportunity, and this is kind of what I want to highlight for you because it's a new moon. This is an opportunity for the rebirth or the reinvention of something, especially the reinvention of self, because it's Sun and Uranus conjunct in the sign of the newborn, right? So if there's something that you want to recreate or reimagine, you could have an insight with this new moon that really gives you kind of an inspiration on what direction to take that rebirth, that reinvention of self. Okay, so expect that. A sudden insight could come up related to something that needs reinvented or something that needs to be reborn. Okay, so Sun conjunct Uranus, Mercury entering Aries, Pluto stationing retrograde. All this is happening at once, right? Over a very short period of time on the 25th and 26th. So this is really kind of the energy of unexpected changes and noble actions. It's an energy of disruptions and setbacks and reversals, but with themes of doing what's right. Impatience, impulsiveness, and headstrong behavior. These things are also more likely with this new moon. Okay. And then the other thing that I want to call out for you is that because this new moon is happening just as Pluto is stationing retrograde, there's a possibility for renewed destruction later when Pluto stations direct. Okay? So just kind of keep that on your radar for down the road, something you'll want to watch for. We have Mercury conjunct Uranus coming up on the 30th of April. That's a time when you're going to want to watch for unexpected news. There's a risk of travel accidents or miscommunications, misunderstandings, that sort of thing. But watch for unexpected news, especially related to the houses that Mercury rules or the houses that Mercury may be transiting for you in your sidereal natal chart. And then mark your calendars for May 4th. We have the Sun conjunct Mercury that day. That is going to be an important day, really kind of for everyone. Everyone will feel that in some way, but it's an especially important day for those folks with Gemini or Virgo, Sun or rising sign, because Mercury rules either your ascendant and therefore your chart, possibly, or it rules your Sun. Okay, and then also kind of coming up, I'm going to toss this out there, but we're not going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about it on the next broadcast. We're going to have Mercury out of bounds coming up from May 16th until June 10th. So that's the same week that we have all this retrograde activity. And we'll talk about that more on the next broadcast. June and July eclipse season. This is an important thing to be talking about. This is coming up. I'm going to be doing a broadcast on Friday, April 24th. At 3 in the afternoon Eastern Daylight Time on the June and July eclipse season. Of course, I was talking about the critical dates and degrees that you need to know. I'm inviting you to sign up now. There's a link in the video description just below or just above, depending on whether you're watching live on Facebook or watching this on the replay or watching it on YouTube. You'll want to go to that link and sign up. We're doing this as a webinar style broadcast this time around, rather than as a public live stream. So you want to sign up to attend the live, bring your chart and bring your questions, because I'm going to take some time to get into your charts with you a little bit and answer your questions on that broadcast. Prepare for about 90 minutes. It's going to run a little bit longer than my typical eclipse season broadcast. Part of the reason is because we actually have 3 eclipses this go around rather than our normal 2. We have a full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, June 5th. We have the new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. I believe it's in Gemini on June 21st. And then we have a full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius on July 5th. So we have 3 in a row. And I'm going to be talking about each of those lunations specifically. Normally when we do this broadcast, I only talk about the dates and the degrees and how to navigate eclipse energy. This time we're going to be talking about each of these 3 specific eclipses on its own in a little bit more depth. And so you may want to come prepared to take notes. You're definitely going to want to bring your calendar or planner so you can write down important dates that may affect you. But sign up right now. We're going to cover the 2020 mid-year eclipse season with an eye towards how to know if you're going to be personally affected by any of those 3 eclipses, whether that effect is going to be challenging or easier for you to accommodate in your life, and what dates you're going to need to keep an eye on in the coming 12 months. So for the entire coming year, if you're going to be directly affected by any of these 3 upcoming eclipses. So be sure to register. June 2020 eclipses.mysticphysick.com/register is where you can go to sign up for that. And then also be sure, join me live tomorrow, April 22nd, is our new moon. Excuse me. Yes, April 22nd is our new moon in Sidereal Aries. And so tomorrow on the 21st is our live broadcast. I put the wrong date. I put the 22nd for the new moon. But the broadcast is on the 21st in the Sidereal Insights Astrology community here on Facebook. So be sure to, if you're not a member of the community, join the community if you'd like to join live. That's going to be at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or 2:30 a.m. Let's see if I can get this right. This is British summertime, or 1:30. I didn't put AM or PM, folks. I'm super sorry. I think it's PM. I think it's 1:30 in the afternoon, Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's in the Sidereal Insights Astrology community here on Facebook. And of course, please join that. Also, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the Mystick Physick Astrology YouTube channel. Please click on the notification bell if you like, so that you never miss a broadcast, because I'm not always super reliable about sending out the reminder emails of when I am going to go live or when we are going to have a broadcast. Thanks so much for all your support, and welcome back those of you who are returning visitors. Thank you for joining me live, Danielle. It was good to have you on. Sit tight. We've got some shifts and some exciting days coming up. We've got some Uranus conjunctions and some Uranus aspects that we're going to be working through, but I'm really optimistic about our coming new moon. I think that Mars is exceptionally well placed to support us. Just be aware unexpected things can come up, and we're going to have to adapt, and we're going to have to roll with those changes. But thank you so much for joining me live, and we will see you again next time. Thank you.